More street cred.
Yes.
Yeah. So Laura Milkert has been working with the Field Museum and the Friends of the Forest Preserve, and is going to talk about.
So I apologize I got here a little late. I was in a bread baking workshop helping out west of here. So I missed the beginning part of the conversation, but I'm going to take just a couple minutes, I guess, to talk about some of the work that I've been involved in with the Field Museum, and then thinking creatively about ways that we can promote native plantings and other sustainable initiatives here in Pullman. So at the Field Museum, I'm a part of a team that's called the Keller Science Action Center. And so we're an outreach arm of the Field Museum of sorts, and we do work in the Andes Amazon, doing these rapid biological inventories, helicoptering into the Amazon, doing really exotic, sexy stuff. Right now they're in Peru, doing this inventory, cataloging everything that they can in this bio-blitz of sorts. But then we're also doing equally sexy, informative, important work, I think, here in the Chicago region, and a lot of that is on the south end of Lake Michigan in what we call the Calumet region. So it's this little otter-shaped section there. I see somebody who's nodding their head back there, Eileen, somebody who's been involved in some of the work that we do. We partner a lot with organizations, as Tom said, like Friends of the Forest Preserves, Southeast Environmental Task Force, a lot of the other efforts that are taking place throughout the Calumet region with open lands, with the Millennium Reserve, all these efforts to work on conservation and sustainability. And so as it relates to Pullman, we are involved in some environmental education projects, and so we work with elementary school students and up through high school students. We work with Simeon. Somebody asked about Simeon. So we take local youth. We work with Gwendolyn Brooks over here. We take local students to local forest preserves and natural areas so that they can develop a connection to a place. So similar to what Liz is talking about bringing these youth to these places, getting their hands dirty. They're doing environmental restoration work, so they're removing invasive species, they're collecting native seeds, they're doing basic ecology lessons, and there's also space in each of these field experiences to do reflection, because we really want these youth to develop a connection to these places. And so they go fall, winter, spring, and by springtime, they don't think we're so crazy being like, yeah, you should come out here and do this stuff. It starts to feel a little bit more natural for them. And then hopefully someday, there's this hook and that they want to come back on their own and help take care of these places. And so we're working with over 14 high schools on the south side. We're expanding that into Northwest Indiana. And we're working with over 3,000 elementary school students all throughout Chicago, but a lot of them are here on the south side as well. And so one of the sites that I just wanted to talk about, because it is so close to Pullman here, is a forest preserve, Bobian Woods Forest Preserve. It's our closest forest preserve. Some of us years ago did a walk and a scouting effort to think about what a trail might look like to bike from Pullman to the forest preserve, because I know as a biker myself, many of you might feel the same way living in this community, or if you're from nearby, we tend to feel a little landlocked. You have an expressway, you want to go east, you have to cut across the expressway. There's these barriers. Going west, there's different kinds of barriers. And so if there was some way to connect Pullman to a trail, and to the Cal-Sag trail that's now being developed that will run east-west, that would be a huge opportunity. So I think there's some trail connectivity opportunities there. And then we also do regular community stewardship at Bobian Woods. So on the first Saturday of every month, and we're also expanding to do some on Wednesday, so they will conflict with the co-op days, but you can't do it all, I guess. In the winter, we're out there. Surprisingly, it's some of the best, it's like the best time of the year to be out there. The ground is frozen, so you're not trampling things, and it's this unexpected, beautiful, quiet space. Can't hear the highway if you get across the tracks, and it feels like you're really away from all this development. And we are clearing out those invasive species with bow saws and loppers, and we're burning them in a big fire. So it feels like you get your workout in. You don't have to pay to go to Planet Fitness unless you really want to. But we would welcome folks from the community to come, because we really want our last natural spaces. There are so few of these remnant natural areas left that we are really trying to get local communities to take care of these places. And it's a respite, I think, for us, like feeling like, I know I look out my backyard and I can see 6 neighbors, and it's wonderful, but it's also nice to go out and to be able to get away. So I would invite you all, if anybody's interested in ever just coming out there, the next volunteer day is on March 5th, next Saturday, from 10 to 1. We'll have a fire, we'll have marshmallows, and you can bring food and cook it out over the fire. We've also talked about developing, like if there's an interest in a walking group or something, if you want to walk somewhere besides the loops or out to the Method Factory and back. We've talked about maybe we could do a walking group that same morning when the volunteer day is going on if you're not as interested in walking, but you're maybe concerned about safety and want to walk in numbers. So there's all, I think, an infinite amount of ideas and ways that we can help activate and amplify the good work that's happening at that site. So that was a lot more than I had intended to say, but that's to get it started.
Would you talk a little bit about the project you're going to do in Pullman?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, so JB and I got our wheels spinning earlier this year. We developed these rapid color guides with my job at the Field Museum, but then I thought we could be doing more here in Pullman to really promote native plantings. And so this grew out of a conversation about some opportunities maybe with the National Park Service, and they're interested and excited to do native plantings, but they just weren't there, and so then, or not quite ready. And so then we started having this idea that maybe at Mosnart we could have a demonstration garden of sorts and highlight a few key natural native plants, some that were historic to this region, which I think is fun to play off this idea of the Pullman history. And so we'll have some of the native plants that we have documentation for from the 1880s, and also ones that we know were from this region and that we would encourage people to continue to plant in their gardens. And so hopefully it'll be this year-long project that will be educational and I think empowering. We have yet to flesh out the full schedule, but it'll involve some sort of planting and demonstration garden at the Mosnart property, maybe connecting to ring barrels, some recommended suite of plants that people could then use themselves, and then we'll have some sort of seed sharing or celebration come fall as well. So that's sort of the storyline, I guess, that we're envisioning for this year. I'm really excited about it because native plants are a passion of mine, and it sometimes feels intimidating, I think, because they tend to be leggy and sort of floppy depending on where you're at. As some of you may have seen, my yard is all native plants, and it's maybe not everybody's aesthetic, but maybe there's sort of a happy medium of plants, maybe like 4 or 5 lower growing plants that people might really like, or some lessons learned that might be applicable to a broader audience. So I'm really looking forward to having more conversations about how we talk about monarchs and pollinators and all the threats to these pollinators, and what a difference it would make each of us just planted a few native plants. It's like that ripple effect. And so we're really going to try and do just this small example of how it's doable. It's really not that intimidating at all.
Thanks for bringing your expertise.
You're welcome. I'm not a scientist by training. I work with a lot of ecologists and scientists. I study social sciences, but it's about connecting people to these opportunities, and that's what we get most excited about. So that's why it's really special and personal for me that I get to work so close in these forest preserves, but then also right here in our neighborhood.
If someone wants to do their whole front yard with native plantings, similar to what you have, do you have a resource that they could go to?
Yeah, well, that's part of this project this year. I envision this guide will have a list of some plants and then also some resources of how to. A lot of this stuff exists already, but it's really piecemeal, and so maybe depending on who the audience is, scale it down. Yes, specific to Pullman, maybe specific to Calumet, some resources. There are some nurseries that sell native plants. There's a Possibility Place that's south of here, but it's as close as you can get to local, and JF New. And so having some recommendations about where you can get native plants, I think is really helpful too. So we'll be working on consolidating some of those resources. And then I don't. What did you say?
Ask your neighbor.
Yeah, and you can ask me. I'll tell you what I know. And there's other people who know a lot about plants in the neighborhood too.
Could be there's a garden club in the area.
There's a garden club.
Yes.
Well, we'll document the actual thing on the Mosnart website, exactly what she's doing, exactly what she's planning, when and how, and all that. So it should be able to be replicated.
Yeah, we want it to be like a little bit of a how-to. So I don't know if anybody has questions. I guess one other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned was I don't know if the national, I don't know what's been spoken about prior to this, but the National Park Service is working on a bio blitz for May 21st. It's a Saturday, and so just thinking about green things happening, native plants, native species, thinking about cataloging those. That might just be a date that you want to save. There'll be, I'm sorry?
What's the date?
It's Saturday, May 21st, and so the details are just coming together, but we'll be announcing that once there's more information. I think it's going to be like a half a day, 10 to 1, but the idea is that it'll be a way for local people who are really interested in nature to, use a fine-tuned comb or, use a lens to study what is actually here. So we might have some entomologists and some ornithologists to study like what birds are actually on this site. We know it's a former industrial site, so it's not going to be like doing a BioBlitz at the Indiana Dunes. There's going to be a lot fewer species, but I think it would be informative to have a baseline of what's here and also just open up people's eyes about the diversity that's right here in our own backyard. So stay tuned for more information about that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I see the question.
I'm a biker, and I would like to be in an area where I could just see the pure Mother Nature. And it's difficult sometimes around in our neighborhood. How do you go about, do you guys have biking events or?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, personally, with the Field Museum, we do an event the second weekend in June at Beaubien. So this year it's going to be June 11th. It's a celebration day. It's free. There's paddling. There's canoeing. So it's a great opportunity if you've never been in a boat or if you want to just paddle at your local forest preserve, coming over. And we have coordinated a few, like Tom has worked with a youth group before to bike over there. These are sort of informal things. I know slow roll. You're actually involved in slow roll, right?
I used to be. I can't right now. I have schools.
Anyway, Slow Roll is an entity that is organizing rides throughout the Chicago region, and I know that they've been talking, I know they did one on Martin Luther King weekend between Pullman and Big Marsh, which is going to be a bike park, slated to be, like I heard this fall, I don't know if I believe that or not, but the park is a former Department of the Environment site that has a lot of issues with toxicity, and so they're remediating the site, they're capping it, and it's going to become some sort of urban bike park. And so that's supposed to open this fall, and so I think that's really going to transform biking in the region, and it might push us to start to think about how do we get there from here, right? Anybody who's just west of that park is going to have an issue getting across the expressway. So I think sometimes these things, happen in baby steps, and I think that's one thing that's a huge, it's great that something is happening, and there's a lot of investment in that site, and so I think there will be more opportunities for biking. So I don't know if that really fully answered your question, but
So, Slow Roll Chicago, do you know them?
No.
So they're an organization that organizes rides throughout the south and west sides of Chicago, and highlights a lot of art and nature and things like that. So if you just go on their website or their Facebook, you can find out when the next rides are. I organized with them over the summer last year, but they do one a week every Wednesday night. And then they do a Saturday daytime one.
Okay.
Another organization to invest, to check out for that bike is Center for Neighborhood Technology, CNT.org. And they're affiliated with another organization that's relatively new, that's just focused on bike and walking, transportation in Chicago. And so there actually is, and they are a formal organization for that, and I'm blanking out on the name, but it's through the Center of Neighborhood, Center, and CNT.org.
I know in Altgeld there's a group from Active Transportation Alliance that is organizing some rides. They'll be coming to that Beaubien celebration.
Major Taylor?
Major Taylor, the trail, and there's a Friends of Major Taylor trail that does cleanups around the trail and does sponsored rides. I think what I'm hearing here, though, is that there's so much information that we each have, and it sounds like maybe, I don't think we talked about the Facebook group that yours thinking.
Not yet, no.
Okay, so maybe it's worth just saying that, so a few of us have just started to have this conversation about, like, what do we mean by green Pullman? How do we get more people involved in this conversation? We've had one informal meeting to get the conversation started, but we don't want that to be the end of the conversation, and so we thought that a lot of us don't have time for extra commitments and too many meetings, but one simple thing that we could do is to organize an online community that's talking about these green efforts. And so there's a lot of Facebook pages already, but that's Pullman for you. So we were thinking we would create one that's specific to all the green initiatives. And so if there's resources or ideas, or somebody hears about something for the Center for Neighborhood Technology or Friends of Major Taylor Trail, that could be an online community that we can start to cultivate to really push some of these ideas forward.
What's the name of it?
Pullman Green, It's something, something, something.
Yeah. It's called Pullman Green, Making Pullman a Sustainable Community, I believe is the title of it. I don't know, can that computer attach that, can I pull up the page so everyone can see it?
Sure. Yeah.
Is there internet?
It was having trouble connecting to the internet.
So we're just envisioning it as like an informal network of people that care about green things.
Well,
So
yeah, I don't know. Do people want to see the page? Okay.
I find